but one of the theories is that it creates different connections between different parts of your brain, and parts of your brain that have been dormant for a while. It kind of wakes them up, but it really is kind of connecting regions of your brain that weren't talking with each other. It kind of increases those connections and increases the crosstalk. And
Right. So
for
rather than
whatever
like increasing a variable in an equation, you're changing the entire variable, or you're changing the entire equation.
yeah, you're basically increasing. If you think about it, like one of the theories is think about it in the term of entropy, right? Like, and if you think about depression and you think about it as a lack of entropy, right? You're very rigid. That's why people that are depressed have OCD tendencies. They're very rigid in their thinking, right? They kind of ruminate on the same thing all the time. So think about psychedelics as a drug that comes in and breaks and kind of breaks apart that rigidity, and it increases the entropy in your brain basically. And so by doing that, your brain becomes a little more malleable, and now you can cope with things a little better, right? You're not so rigid in your thinking. That's kind of the best theory that I've come across, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Great. Okay, so it's like less ones and zeros, more like restructuring the way people think, in a sense.
Yeah, it's like a chemical form of like cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah,
Like it's
I get
and so,
you.
like people go through therapy, they talk through things and it changes their brain by talking through them. Well, you could take it's a chemical pharmaceutical form of that, right? A chemical form of doing that, where you kind of just increase the malleability of your brain.
Let me ask you guys then. So,
Re-
do you guys
Real quick,
have you guys used?
did we just
Hold on.
explain
Let me
to
just
did we just
let me just
explain to
ask this question real quick.
Alpha what depression was? Alpha, you really went alpha bot on us right now. Go ahead, go with your question.
I was asking an illustrative question just for my own understanding, but you can try to stoke meaningless beefs if you want. But here's my other question. So, have you guys taken? Do you think there's any sort of like substance or anything, or any sort of like food or any type of, I don't know, like herbal thing that you guys have taken in your everyday life that you think have had like let's say like like sort of like the same effect as like a psilocybin would have on a depressed person? Like, do you think like your brain would be different had you not, like, if you didn't take as much caffeine, or if, like, I don't know, like, have you had your own like psychology change in a drastic way by what you eat, or like the kind
Yeah,
of like stuff that you might
I
take?
can give you my examples.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went out for a run today in the sun, and the sun hitting me charged me up, changed my mentality, made me feel more relaxed, more calm, and it just helped me out significantly. Also, what I do in the winter is, you guys talking about the turmeric. I invented a tea called Zap tea, where we put a shot of ginger, turmeric, of juice into it, and then we get some tea, heat it up, and then we get some turmeric ginger tea, heat that up, and then we take that. That has stopped me from getting sick for 2 years now. I was sick for after the pandemic, and when what's it called, everything got rolling. I was sick 11 times in 1 year. COVID 3 times. Once I started Zap T, I was good.
So you refuse to get vaccinated.
It's not the
Like, no wonder you got
conversation.
sick.
It's not the
No wonder
conversation.
you got sick from COVID like 18 times.
Let's not use that word for the algorithm. That's my example. Bala, what you got anything for
I mean, it's a great question. I've seen changes in my personal life by more of a reductionist, when I remove certain things more than added them, to be honest.
But to the
Like
extent that, like,
remove.
let's say for example, like, let's say, have you removed anything that would change you from like like, because to me, like, depression is pretty serious, and like
Yeah,
going from depressed to not depressed, that's like really high magnitude behavioral shift.
yeah.
Like, does your guys' own, I'm asking, like, does your own body respond to, let's say, like, internal or like just like stimuli from outside with that great of a magnitude, or do you guys think that you're a little bit more resistant to that kind of stuff, or like?
I think everyone has a baseline level, right? And it's very dependent on, so many things, genetics, childhood, environment, right? And I think there are people that eat like shit, smoke cigarettes all day, and their brain chemistry is just genetically incredible, and they're just very resistant to things. And then there's definitely people on the opposite side of that spectrum, right? But I do think from personal experience, I'll say the one thing that's been consistent in my life that has that's been consistent and definitely has brought me out of anything, essentially, is running. I really think you could change brain chemistry by doing that, and there's definitely some evidence to support that.
What
But
about like lifting weights and stuff? Because I've
yeah,
had a similar experience with weights.
yeah, and I think the most important thing is consistency too, right? Like
Yeah, of course.
doing something very consistent every day, no matter what it is. I think it's gonna change your brain chemistry over time. I mean, our brains are highly, highly malleable. So, when I brought up the psychedelic thing because I think it's not gonna change it. You can't, like no drug, nothing, no chemical, caffeine, but none of it's gonna change it on its own, right? But there are some people that are so stuck in their ways that they really kind of need a shock to the system in order to start building those habits to rewire their brain using behavioral techniques, either running or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I see it, both based on like, the little science I know about it and just anecdotally from my own personal experience.
I think too. You said a word, the illumination, rumination. That's a big component, and I think when you're running, it's a distraction. When you're lifting, it's a
Yeah,
distraction. When you shock your brain, you could distract because a lot of times when the depression comes in, is because people are was it ruminating or is it illuminating with the
yeah,
R?
ruminating. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a very character.
yeah, people are ruminating and it just doesn't stop. It's a nonstop, and to be honest, it's it's one of those things where it's a personal journey to try to recover from that essentially. But yeah, it's a tough thing.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree.
It's definitely a tougher I don't know. I've fallen into some traps, and then I just I find my way to get out of certain things, by distractions, so I don't know if I'm like delaying things or it's
Yeah.
just, maybe I'm gonna fucking crash out heavy when I'm like 50, 60, maybe
Yeah, I
more.
think about that too, because honestly, one of the ways, like, I think about that all the time, actually, because, like, one of the things I think about is, like, okay, like, if I'm uncomfortable, I'll just distract myself, right? Whether it's, work, exercise, whatever it is. But, like, are you actually addressing the root of the problem, or are you running away from it? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
I'm like
Yeah.
a big I'm big on just like addressing problems the second I see them arise. Just because like yeah, I mean I think pretty much everybody's had problems with kicking the can down the road on stuff, and I
Yeah.
find that if you address things early, you save yourself a lot more grief when you've addressed it early than when you wait and allow the problem to grow. I heard it's like a phrase I heard today was like whatever. I mean that's basically it. So just like
Yeah.
addressing stuff early I think is like really
And
important for me.
I think the reduction aspect is good too because what Ball said is because a lot of times these kids, I don't know if when you're going through some kind of things in your life, I don't know if you're just like hungover, or I don't know if you just haven't popped your pill. I don't know if you haven't, whatever. So sometimes people are having the chemical imbalances from drugs they're taking, or from other things
Yeah.
that then all of a sudden they think they're depressed, but really they don't know what a fucking withdrawal is, and they're so.
Yeah, I mean, removing distractions, removing, obviously
Ce-
substances,
cell phone cell phone cell phone addiction is probably the root of a lot of people's problems, and it's just it's a very, very dangerous tool, to be honest, very, very dangerous. So
that's like it's like the biggest drain on energy, I think. Like,
yeah,
and it's
stop.
just so difficult.
It could take your momentum away right away, or it can give you momentum. That's the scary part.
Yeah, but it gives you fake momentum, right? It's not like, it's bullshit dopamine, bullshit like motivation, these types of things. It's not like long lasting stuff.
Yeah, I mean exactly. So that's why it's a continuous dopamine hit that you need to get by. So
It's like a weird feedback loop in people's brains. Like they're like, it's like for like I don't know if you like all this like stuff that people they look at their phones and they just get mad at stuff that they look at, for example, and then pretty
Mhm.
soon they start like manufacturing like victim complexes out of this like manufactured rage loop that they're on, which is like motivating like a lot of like the politics and a lot of politics in the country and stuff like that. A lot of like, for example, like a lot of the Trump stuff. For example, it's like I was watching this like Trump speech today, and like the way that this guy he's in Michigan, so it came across my feed on Twitter.
your boy
And it's
Trump.
just like yeah, it's like the way that he communicates with his audience. It's like it's in like such an aggrieved way that you would think that these people have been living in like a fucking death camp or something for the past 50 years, and he's like here to rescue them from like
Or you're saying
from
he's
like
coming in like, oh, like he's the savior type of thing?
yeah, or he's like playing off of their grievances. Like he's
Yeah,
like they're gonna take away your gas stoves and like
yeah, yeah.
they're gonna try to restrict your water and like make it so that like you gotta like only you be rationing water to like 2 quarts a day or something like that. And I'm sitting here thinking like who does this work with? Because like we live in Michigan, or I live in Michigan anyway. It's like I've never
Yeah.
fucking rationed water in my life. Like nobody's like there's nobody coming in and like telling me that I can't use a
Yeah.
fucking gas stove.
Here's the
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, because you're trapped in this rage loop
No, no, no.
where
What
you think like
you're not
you think like the
understanding.
government's gonna come like take away your
So,
fucking like civil liberties and shit.
so
Or like your right to have a
listen.
gas stove.
One of the topics today was the bottom of the list. It says, "Is AI regulating you already?"